Transformative moment. Paralyzed CEO's son alone in hospital discover what one single dad reveals about family secrets. Ryan Doyle stood at the edge of his father's hospital room, the sterile smell of antiseptic mixing with the heavy reality of the past year. One moment, one fatal mistake had left his once prominent father a shadow of the man who built an empire. The silence was deafening, punctuated only by the hum of machines keeping his father alive, and behind that silence was a cacophony of unresolved feelings: resentment, anger, regret. Ryan's father, David Doyle, the charismatic CEO, was now bound to a wheelchair, stripped of the very power that had once defined their lives. Ryan clenched his fists, muscle memory recalling the mechanical tension cultivated over years of emotional neglect. Somewhere deep down, beneath the bitterness, he felt lost, a mechanic by trade, yet unable to fix the crumbling family he had inherited. The demands of being a single father stretched thin as he walked the line between duty to his father and the profound need to be present for his son, Jack. As Ryan balanced hospital visits with Jack's teenage angst, the gap between them widened, each moment spent apart only amplifying the loneliness swirling in their home like leaves in a relentless wind. "Dad," Jack had said just yesterday, eyes glued onto a screen in his darkened room, where online games provided more comfort than his father's wise words. "I don't want to go back, it's just depressing." The tightness in Ryan's chest ached. He needed to reach Jack, to pull him from that virtual abyss, yet he felt invisible, his voice drowned out by digitized gunfire. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. As Ryan sat next to his father's lifeless gaze, the word family twisted in his chest like a knife. Loyalty battled with the truth that impulsive decisions at the top had repercussions far below. Whispers of a corporate scandal that led to David's paralysis gnawed at Ryan like unseen rats, dissolving the trust he had placed in family name. Each time he brushed past a nurse or watched another doctor shake their head, the dread festered deeper. Would he expose the darkness tied to his father's injury, or would he protect the legacy covered in lies? The questions loomed over him, weighing down like the gray skies threatening a storm. As if to punctuate his turmoil, Mia, a nurse with a soft smile and unwavering kindness, often stopped to share intuitive suggestions about coping. There was warmth hidden in her gaze, offering hope yet igniting embers of unresolved pain. Would Jack ever forgive him if he chose truth over familial ties? Yet, just when Ryan dared to imagine a bridge to reconcile with Jack, a shocking revelation emerged, appending everything he thought he knew. A family secret twisted like a vine around his heart, tightening with each thought. He needed to confront the man who once held the world in his hands, a man who had abandoned him emotionally when he needed guidance most. As Ryan stood at this emotional crossroads, every breath felt laborious, fraught with choices that could either shatter his father's reputation or pave the way for his son's healing. And the clock was ticking. Did he have the courage to redefine what family meant, or would he be haunted by the ghosts that lurked within the walls of their fractured legacy? Each heartbeat echoed his desperate search for answers, as darkness and possibility tangled in a relentless dance. Ryan knew one thing: this was only the beginning. Ryan stared at the wall opposite his father's hospital bed, watching the shadows shift with the flickering light overhead. There was a sense of domination in that sterile room, a lingering weight that matched the paralysis on the other side of the bed. It dawned on him that the real battle was unfolding not just in David's broken body, but in the heart of their fractured family. The nurse's words echoed in his mind: healing starts with honesty. He had barely embraced that notion since he heard the whispered hints of scandal that had swallowed his father whole. But what honesty meant now was layered in complexity. Was he ready to tear open the facade of family secrets, exposing wounds that might shatter what remained of their bond? Or was ignorance truly bliss, allowing the possibility of a damaged father-son relationship to remain intact? Deep down, Ryan felt that confrontation with the truth was inevitable. What kind of man would he become if he chose silence? The thought pushed him to straighten his back, steeling himself against the inner turmoil. He needed to find a way to bridge the emotional chasm between him and Jack, restoring some semblance of family strength. Leaving the hospital that day, Ryan felt the burden of responsibility shift on his shoulders. It wasn't just about his father anymore, it was about shaping the type of father he aspired to be. The disparity between the man Jack needed and the man Ryan was presenting was too great. He needed to emerge from the wreckage of his heritage.at home. Jack's rooms were a battleground, a wall of posters and gaming troves in stark contrast to Ryan's muted sanctum of mechanical tools. Ryan could sense the distance growing. Each unspoken word between them felt like an unyielding chasm, and he needed to find the right words to cross it. "Hey, buddy," he called, his voice breaking an awkward silence. Jack remained detached, absorbed in a virtual world that offered challenges and rewards, yet provided no refuge from reality. A lump formed in Ryan's throat, but he pushed forward. "Can we talk?" Jack's begrudging glance indicated reluctant compliance. As they settled on the worn couch, each absorbed in their own inner conflicts, Ryan's voice faltered. The tension in the air prickled fiercely. "Look, I know things are rough right now. I'm trying to figure stuff out with your granddad, and I want to be here for you, too." Ryan took a breath, pulling from the depths of his uncertainty. "I don't want you to feel trapped like I've felt." To his surprise, Jack paused his game. "You think talking will fix it?" The challenge in his tone was unmistakable. Ryan's heart sank. Words felt inadequate against the enormity of the gap between them. "It's a start. I don't have all the answers, but I want you to be able to talk to me." The room was a tinderbox, and his admission hung between them, raw and vulnerable. Jack's eyes flickered, revealing a hint of the hurt buried beneath his defiance. Ryan realized he was grappling with the magnitude of their pain. It was far more than an unspoken video game preference. Patient dialogue was a foreign concept for Ryan. He could fix cars, but people's emotional engines were far more complicated. Yet, here he was, poised on the precipice of vulnerability. "I need you to know I'm not trying to take your freedom away. I wish for us to be closer. This family, our family, we can't break apart like this." Jack shifted uncomfortably. The temptation to return to the safety of the screen was palpable. "I just want things to be how they were." "How they were?" Ryan repeated, the memories of better times crashing over him like an unwanted wave. Those days felt distant, almost unattainable through the fog of recent events. Before he could gather his thoughts to respond, Jack stood abruptly. "You don't understand. You weren't there." In that moment, the depth of their rift crystallized. Words failed, the gravity of their unaddressed issues looming larger than life. Ryan felt the fresh flush of determination match the rising tide of anxiety. They sat on the edge of something profound, both of them looking back at the wreckage of their shared past, and Ryan knew he had to make a choice. Choices had consequences, but without them, they were doomed to isolation. He needed to confront David, his father, and forge a path through the secrets that threatened to suffocate their family. A cold sweat ran down his spine. The reckoning would not be easy. As he met Jack's uneasy gaze, an unspoken understanding shimmered between them. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty and pain, yet that pain might just birth something new. Ryan clenched his fists, determined to face whatever darkness awaited. The time had come to confront both the man he had been avoiding and the truth hidden behind family walls. But first, he needed Jack to understand the stakes. Would they take the first step together, or was the chasm too wide to bridge? With a deep breath, Ryan braced himself. Clarity awaited, but so did the confrontation. The haunting question loomed: was he ready to face not only his father but the truth about himself and the man he wanted to become? Ryan's pulse raced as he paced the floor of his small workshop. Each step echoed the precarious balance he had created between career ambition and familial responsibility. Tools hung neatly on the wall, silent reminders of tasks completed, projects abandoned, and dreams yet unrealized. What he once thought of as a sanctuary now felt like a cage. The mid-afternoon sun streamed through the grimy window, dust motes suspended in the air, yet the warmth failed to reach his heart. Today was the day he would visit his father, a man he had idolized until the fragile veneer of perfection shattered under the strain of dishonesty. Ryan's thoughts cycled back to the words that had sat heavy on his chest: healing starts with honesty. The time had come to confront the fractured past, even at the cost of facing uncomfortable truths. As he headed towards his father's room, Ryan mentally rehearsed his lines. He had always admired David's business acumen, regarded his father as a guiding light in his own pursuit of success. But now, those same eyes that once bore ambition appeared clouded by guilt and sorrow. It was time to trade admiration for the authenticity required in reclaiming their family ties. His hand trembled as he gripped the door latch, deliberately taking a deep breath before stepping inside. The hospital room was stark, reminiscent of the lair of an ancient dragon who hoarded secrets rather than treasure. David lay there, frail and unguarded, and what had once been an imposing figure now appeared vulnerable. Ryan's heart ached with conflicting emotions: love, resentment, disappointment. Ryan, David's voice was a strained whisper, yet it resonated deeply within him. "Hey, Dad." He allowed a moment to pass, absorbing the reality of the man before him. Ryan clenched his fists at his sides, grappling with the weight of the impending conversation. "I wanted to talk about everything." David shifted uncomfortably, a pained expression flickering across his features. "You should be focusing on your life, Ryan. Not on me." "No, that's where you're wrong." The intensity in Ryan's voice surprised even himself. "For too long, I've brushed aside what matters in favor of career achievements." He paused, a familiar vulnerability creeping in. "I can't ignore our issues any longer." Tension thickened in the air, suffocating yet electric with possibility. David's eyes darkened like storm clouds ready to unleash their fury. "You're too young to understand what I went through. The decisions I made, they hurt us," Ryan interrupted, his voice firm. "The lies, the secrets, they have consequences. I don't want to break apart with my son like you broke with me. He's hurting, Dad, and I can't help him if we don't face this together." With that, Ryan felt something shift within him. The burden of his past was no longer a chain but a catalyst for change. His eyes bore into David's, demanding not just a lesson from his father but a reckoning. "What do you expect from me?" David's voice cracked, a mixture of vulnerability and defiance. "You want me to confess every mistake?" "No." Ryan halted, a sense of empathy washing over him. "I want you to be honest with yourself. I want you to recognize what you've done and acknowledge how it's affected our family. We need truth to mend the fractures, to heal." Silence enveloped the room, draped in heavy contemplation. Ryan felt the emotional walls begin to crumble, but fear loomed large. What if honesty unveiled atrocities neither of them was prepared to confront? "Your son needs you," Ryan stated plainly, infused with a conviction honed from his own journey toward self-discovery, about to morph into a shared reckoning. "If we could stand together against the storms of our past, maybe Jack can start to find his way through the fog." David looked away, lost in memories that were not his own. Ryan understood that this moment was not solely about reconciliation, but an invitation for growth, for breaking the cycle of hurt and moving forward. Yet, would David meet him on that ground? And more importantly, how would he and Jack confront the aftermath once the truth rained down upon them? As the shadows lengthened in the room, Ryan knew this was only the beginning of a daunting journey. The air pulsed with uncertainty, the promise of change hung tantalizingly close, but tangible freedom remained just out of reach. With a determined breath, he leaned forward, ready to shatter the silence that had enveloped them for so long. What would be uncovered in this fragile exchange, and would he and Jack begin to reclaim the pieces of their shattered lives together? The reality of his father's choices awaited clarity, but Ryan was prepared to not only learn but to lead with courage. Ryan's gaze remained fixed on his father's averted eyes, emphasizing the chasm of unspoken truths that stretched between them. The fragility of the situation had morphed into a living entity, each moment pulsating with the potential for revelation or disaster. He inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of his own vulnerabilities tangling with David's defensiveness. "Dad," he said, his voice steadying as he pressed onward, "this isn't just about your mistakes. It's about us. About recognizing the patterns that have hurt us and breaking that cycle." David shifted again, his discomfort palpable. "You think I don't know that? I spent too many years chasing success, blinded by ambition." The cost. His voice trailed off, emotions swirling in his eyes like dark clouds precariously close to bursting. "But it's not too late." Ryan's determination surged. "Look where your decisions led. You thought success meant everything. But I'm telling you, it's not worth the price of family. It's time to unpack that baggage." Silence spread once more, but this time, it felt like an opening rather than a closing. Ryan's heart raced as he sensed an inkling of acceptance in David's demeanor. The tension tightened in his chest, morphing into a mix of hope and fear. "Do you think Jack observes that?" David asked finally, his voice a hollow echo of his earlier bravado. "Do you think he'll ever forgive me for the absence, for the distance?" Ryan's brow furrowed, reflecting on how their unresolved conflicts had trickled down to impact Jack's fragile heart. "He's already struggling. But he also believes in redemption. Just look at us, we're both here, ready to confront this mess together." A faint flicker of resolve danced in David's eyes, though the vulnerability beneath was not lost on Ryan. This was a man steeped in past choices, but also one who had the potential for transformation. If they could tap into that potential, perhaps they could salvage something beautiful from the wreckage of their family. "What if I don't know where to start?" David's admission was barely above a whisper but was laden with sincerity. It was as if he was finally acknowledging the underlying fear that had paralyzed him for so long. "That's why I'm here." Ryan leaned in, the sincerity propelling his words forward. "Let us walk through it together. Lay it all out on the table. No more secrets, no more lies. Just honesty. That's the only way you and I can break this cycle." As the gravity of his own proposition settled, Ryan felt a shift inside himself too. He recognized that leading this charge meant not just confronting his father's ghosts, but also facing his fears of failure, of inadequacy as a son and a father. The dual role was overwhelming yet liberating, and for the first time, he was willing to embrace that challenge. Ryan felt a knot tightening but also loosening in his chest, the anticipation mixed with trepidation. They were on the brink of unveiling layers of hurt that had festered for years. Yet he was determined. Together, they could create space for healing, cultivating understanding where chaos had ruled. "What kind of man do you want to be moving forward?" Ryan pressed, embodying both the vulnerability and the responsibility of initiating this pivotal conversation. David glanced up, meeting his son's gaze for perhaps the first time in years. The air shifted between them, infused with a tenuous hope, proof of the intricate tapestry they could weave together if both were brave enough to confront shadows. "Someone who can be better for you and for Jack," David finally declared, his voice cracking but imbued with newfound strength. "I've done a lot of damage. I want to make things right." The grueling journey ahead was outlined sharply in Ryan's mind. Old habits would not dissolve overnight, but this was the first step, a movement towards a unified front. If his father was committed to change, then this could become a profound turning point, but as Ryan considered the enormity of the emotional terrain ahead, uncertainty clouded his optimism. Would David build upon this moment or retreat into fear again? Ryan needed not just the truth but also the commitment, the resolve to face what lay buried. Together they were on the precipice of transformation, yet all it took was a single misstep for it to unravel. As they sat on the edge of honesty, the question loomed large: would David step forward into the light, or would old habits claim him back into shadows? Ryan's resolve burned brightly, unsure of the outcome but aware that this was the moment, one that could alter the course of their family's fate. The challenge was laid before them. It was time to choose. Would they rise together, or would they succumb to the weight of the past? The next morning, the sun's rays filtered through the blinds, casting golden stripes across the small kitchen table where Ryan sat alone. He absent-mindedly stirred his mug of coffee, the warm steam mingling with the weight of yesterday's conversation. The echoes of his father's tentative hope and shared fears played in his mind, forcing him to grapple with the reality of what lay ahead. It was not merely about facing his father, but of confronting his own identity, the complex dance between being a son and a father, and the looming resemblance to David's choices. As he sipped his coffee, the stark contrast of their shared silence lingered. It was an unscripted performance on the stage of life where both had their roles, one, the guiding light of promise, the other, a shadow haunted by neglect. Ryan needed to find a way to strengthen his resolve, not just for his father but also for Jack, whose innocence had been punctured by the very same cycle of mistakes that he put the mug down, his reflection in the glossy surface of the kitchen table drawing a sense of urgency. Ryan pulled out his phone and typed a message to David, suggesting they meet later in the day. He needed to solidify a plan, a framework for this precarious journey of openness. The digital screen glowed back at him, a stark reminder of how easy it was to communicate yet how daunting it could feel to share vulnerabilities face to face. "Are you ready for this?" Ryan whispered to himself, momentarily staving off the uncertainty that gripped him. The message sent, he turned his thoughts inward. This was a journey fraught not just with the potential for healing but also the risk of reconfronting his own past, a past he had worked so hard to overcome, to reshape into a narrative that felt empowering, rather than burdensome. With each passing hour, the anticipation festered. In moments of stillness, doubts crept in. Did he really have the strength to guide David through this labyrinth of regret? What if they stumbled upon deeper scars that could splinter their fragile connection? His inner dialogue swirled between hope and hesitance, creating a tumultuous atmosphere within. As the sun reached its peak in the sky and shadows danced across the kitchen, he gathered his thoughts into what he hoped would be effective strategies to reach his father. The more he contemplated, the more he realized that this journey was about understanding the cycle they had both been trapped in, allowing new narratives to emerge unscathed by past mistakes. He envisioned the conversation, framing it with patience and understanding. David needed to articulate his own struggles, but Ryan knew he had to manage interruptions, guiding toward healing rather than digging into deeper wounds without context. It was crucial for Ryan to be both a listener and a guide, to ensure the dialogue was reciprocal, one where David felt safe to share his vulnerabilities just as Ryan would. Before he knew it, it was time to meet. As he drove to David's house, Ryan's palms felt clammy against the steering wheel. The physical sensation mirrored the upheaval of emotions swirling within him. This was the precipice, the flickering edge of hope and fear. The line between salvation and relapse felt impossibly thin. Pulling into the driveway, Ryan took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his intention. Today was about choice, a crossroad where they would either lace their boots to walk toward healing or choose to retreat into old patterns. It was time for courage, the kind that forged connections between hearts shattered by silence. As he raised his hand to knock on the door, uncertainty washed over him like a cold wave. Would David be ready to face the man he had become, or would he retreat into the shadows that held him captive for so long? Ryan's heart raced with anticipation as he waited for the door to open, knowing that he was teetering on the brink of either profound connection or deep despair. Would this be the moment when everything changed, or just another illusion of hope slipping through their fingers? The door creaked open, and there stood David, eyes wide as if he had caught sight of a ghost. The wrinkles etched around his face bespoke years spent hiding from the truth, and Ryan's heart raced even more at the sight of him. The warm welcome he had hoped for melted into the damp air between them, replaced with an electric tension that neither could ignore. "Ryan," David managed, his voice a whisper like the wind rustling the leaves outside. "I didn't expect you." "Yeah, I know," Ryan replied, forcing himself to meet his father's gaze. "But we need to talk." He stepped inside, feeling the familiar weight of the home he had both yearned for and dreaded. The walls were adorned with memories of unshared laughter and unspoken regret, remnants of a past that was now creeping into their present. "Sit," David motioned toward the living room, his demeanor tentative as he retreated into his own shadowy thoughts. Ryan sat on the edge of the couch, acutely aware of the distance between them, a gulf carved by years of silence and misunderstanding. "What do we need to talk about?" David asked, bravado momentarily failing him. Ryan took a deep breath, steadying the storm brewing within. I want to understand you. I want to understand us. The words spilled from his lips, each syllable laced with the desperation of healing. The dialogue had shifted from cold silence to an invitation for honesty, a dense fog slowly lifting. David hesitated, a flicker of vulnerability crossing his face. I don't know if I can do that, Ryan. Neither do I, Ryan admitted, feeling an unexpected weight lift from his shoulders. But we have to try. For Jack. Mentioning his son drew David's attention, and Ryan saw the flicker of a dormant flame nearly extinguished by time but still holding heat within. Vulnerability opened a door of exploration, revealing layers that begged to be peeled back. Jack. David's voice softened, and Ryan sensed a crack appearing in the wall his father had erected. I never wanted him to grow up like I did. Ryan nodded, the truth burning within him. Then let us change that. Stop the cycle. Those words hung in the air, heavy and electrifying. The moment resonance resonated, an acknowledgement of shared struggle and a call to arms against their own histories. As they engaged in the dance of conversation, words flowed and stumbles faded. Ryan discovered a tenacity within himself he had never called forth, a passionate urge to unearth the past and dig for common ground. He offered David the safety to speak, and with each shared regret, the air grew lighter, transformation edging closer. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, time ironically creeping forward as they navigated this uncharted territory, sharing unsettling truths and sparking glimmers of hope. David spoke of his own father, a man burdened by his own demons, and Ryan revealed the shadows of his youth, revealing the anguish and potential that had shaped him. Yet as the walls began to crumble, so too did the terrain beneath their feet shift with uncertainty. Would this fragile connection last, a bridge from their past to the possibility of a shared future, or was it simply the calm before another storm? As their conversation deepened, a question nagged at Ryan: what would happen when the curtain fell and the world outside pressed in on them once more? Would their new understanding survive the pressures of reality, or would it falter under the weight of unhealed wounds still lurking in the shadows? Can we do this? Ryan asked, an unquenchable need for authenticity in his voice. The flicker in David's eyes dimmed momentarily and then reignited, uncertainty twirling into determination. We can try. The moment hung in silence, a poignant promise shimmering between them. As Ryan contemplated how far they might go, a nagging realization festered: what lay ahead was as uncharted as the paths that had led them here, forcing him to confront what his father might still be hiding. There was still more to uncover, the crevices of past wounds might reveal deeper insights than either had anticipated. But most unsettling of all, were they truly ready to face what might come next? The stale air around them thickened as Ryan pondered the fragile shift occurring between father and son. There was a rawness now, a willingness to bare their souls, but uncertainty clawed at him. The walls of the room felt claustrophobic, echoing with the weight of their unsaid truths. Do you remember the stories I told Jack? Ryan ventured, drawing into the connection with his son to expose his own fears. About your travels when you were younger? About the man you used to be? David shifted, cringing slightly at the memories that invaded his thoughts. I remember, he mumbled, his gaze fixated on a worn-out photograph on the mantel, an idyllic image of a younger David, carefree and sunlit, standing on a craggy cliff overlooking the ocean. But that man is gone. Is he? Ryan's tone sharpened. You can still be that person. You just have to want it. In that moment, Ryan felt a shift within himself. He wasn't just a son asking for reconciliation, but a catalyst demanding change. The courage surged within him. The choice was no longer just about salvaging their relationship, it was about setting a new trajectory for his father's life. David's eyes narrowed, wrestling silently with his past. I made choices, bad choices. The admission prompted Ryan to lean forward, fully engaged. Sometimes it feels insurmountable, like a debt I can never pay back. Ryan felt his heart constrict. It wasn't just about forgiveness, it was about bearing witness to how pain can forge a man, even as it fractures him. We all have debts, Dad. At some point, we have to acknowledge them. You have your darkness, but that doesn't define your worth. A silence enveloped them. David's brow furrowed, and Ryan sensed a deep contemplation where despair had previously taken residence. Despite everything, hope fluttered cautiously in his chest. I spent years burying my past, David finally spoke, his voice unsteady yet filled with an unexpected resolve. I figured that if I didn't talk about it, it would disappear. Ryan leaned back, keenly aware that this was David's pivotal moment. But it hasn't gone away. And it's been a part of us. He quickly added, admitting it might free you. David's breathing grew heavy with the weight of the inevitable. What if that freedom leads to more guilt, more loss? The only way to break the cycle is to confront it head-on, Ryan asserted, his voice becoming an urgent plea. Let us expose the vulnerabilities and see what lies beneath. Together. David's eyes brightened with an ember of understanding. The conversation had turned from confessions to an invitation filled with the promise of shared burdens and collaborative healing. As seconds turned into minutes, Ryan considered what lay ahead. This was not simply about revealing painful truths, it was also a journey into uncharted territories of emotional possibility. The fear that had constricted them for far too long now stood trembling on the precipice of release, with an inhale burdened by anticipation. David said, I always loved to write. But I pushed it aside. Like me. The revelation crashed over Ryan like a tidal wave, invigorating his curiosity. You should write. Maybe share your stories with Jack, show him who you used to be, and who you want to become. David's features softened, realizing the dual purpose in creating. It's been years since I've held a pen. I wouldn't even know where to start. A flicker of excitement ignited in Ryan. Start with your pain and go from there. Unload it. Write for him. Write for yourself. Create a legacy through the words that have lingered unspoken. Those words reverberated at the core of David's being, igniting ambition long extinguished. What if I can't finish? What if I fail? Failure doesn't have to mean stopping. It can be just part of the journey. You have to be willing to try. David considered the thought, his face growing reflective. Swelling confidence wove through Ryan as he recognized the strength rising within his father. The dynamic between them felt transformed, buoyed by possibilities that had been dormant for far too long. They began to glimpse what redemption might look like not just for David but for them both as a family. But just as the glimmer of hope began to crystallize, a sudden knock exploded through the atmosphere, jolting them back to the reality lurking at the edges of their reprieve. Ryan turned toward the door, uncertainty flooding his senses, a sense of dread consumed his thoughts. What now? Had their moment of connection been fortuitous, or was it merely a prelude to devastation? Should I get that? He asked hesitantly, sensing something significant about to unfold. David shook his head, eyes wary. Let me. As the door swung open, Ryan braced himself. Unbeknownst to either of them, the true test of their resolve and the depth of their newfound connections were about to emerge from behind that door, challenging everything they had begun to build. The door creaked open slowly, revealing a figure silhouetted against the harsh light of the corridor. Ryan squinted, trying to make out the features of the person who dared to intrude upon their quiet revelation. David tensed, every muscle in his body coiling like a spring, ready for confrontation. Ryan? The voice came out as a startled whisper, smudged with urgency. Standing in the doorway was Marissa, an old family friend and former colleague of David's, her expression a blend of concern and determination. Marissa, what are you doing here? Ryan asked, his mind racing, images of her past visits flooding back. I received a message about your father. I needed to talk to you both, she began, taking a tentative step inside. The heaviness in her tone punctured the air like a knife. David's eyes narrowed instinctively. About what? About the last project. The company. The decisions you need to know. Ryan sensed the tension amplifying, shifting from the personal, fragile reconnection to the looming shadow of unresolved business issues that David had buried for too long. A moment ago, the air was saturated with reconciliation, now, it crackled with brewing conflict, the possibility of emerging truths glimmering ominously. Marissa hesitated, watching David's reaction as if weighing the significance of each word. "It's about the deal that fell through, the financial mess. It traces back to choices you made, choices that impacted everyone." David's expression morphed, shifting from vulnerability to defensiveness. "That was years ago. I left that world behind." "Did you?" Marissa challenged, stepping further into the room. Ryan could see the determination etched on her face, but it was framed in genuine concern. "You might think that by walking away, you've escaped the consequences. But they haven't escaped you. Not yet." Ryan felt the walls pressing in around him as he absorbed the reality of Marissa's revelations. This was not just a conversation about lost connections or writing stories, this was about confronting demons chained to David's decisions, ones that could rip them apart again. David's fists clenched, anger flaring in those depths of self-loathing that had held him hostage since he left the professional arena. "This is all I need right now, Marissa. I thought you respected my decision to step back." "I do," she shot back, unwavering, "but that doesn't dismiss the ramifications. There are people counting on you to speak up, to own what happened, to fight for those you abandoned. Ignoring it won't erase your history, you know that." Ryan could feel the tremors of David's internal battle escalating. He had watched his father retreat into himself for years, but with Marissa's revelations, he was at a crossroads once again. Would he put up walls, or would he finally dare to confront the consequences of his past decisions? "Maybe this is all too much to handle right now," Ryan proposed, trying to defuse the escalating tension. "We can take a step back." "No." David's voice cracked with raw intensity, a burst of unresolved pain. "No more running away. I can't let my past destroy what little I have left." Marissa's eyes softened, and Ryan saw a flicker of encouragement there. "Then it's time to face it. Start writing. Write down not just the stories of your life but the truth of your mistakes, the decisions that hurt others. Transform that pain into something meaningful." Ryan watched as a range of emotions flitted across David's face. Relief, anger, fear, but most importantly, the glint of determination began to spark. This confrontation with Marissa, although uncomfortable, could be a pivotal moment in their journey toward healing. The urgency in the air shifted again, a new door opening where one had just closed. As David stood tall, shaking off years of suppressed guilt, Ryan knew that their narrative was about to take on a new trajectory. One whispered down pathways of redemption and renewal, but Marissa wasn't finished. "And remember, Ryan, it's not just your father's story. You need to dig into your own, what you've been avoiding, too." The implication hung thick among them, unraveling another layer of the complex familial fabric woven over years of silence. As Ryan's mind began racing with self-reflection, he felt the shadows of fear creep up his spine. Before he could gather his thoughts, he found himself asking, "What truths have I buried?" In that moment, the suffocating air was saturated with new possibilities, weaving together both their stories in ways they hadn't imagined. Ryan realized the journey was just beginning. Their destinies were intertwined, and the choice to dig deeper beckoned them both into uncharted territories of vulnerability and strength. Just as they began to navigate this new realm, another knock resounded, this time pressing harder into the fragile veil they had started to lift. What more awaited outside their walls? Ryan felt the weight of Marissa's words crackling around him, as if electric currents of time and memories were swirling within the room. The knock that interrupted them echoed ominously. He pressed his palms against the table, steadying himself, despite his heart racing in a wild cacophony of confusion and anticipation. "Ryan, are you all right?" Marissa's voice sliced through the mounting tension, snapping him back to the present. "Yeah, just processing." His voice barely wavered, but internally, he was grappling with the monumental task laid before him. The suggestion to dig into his own buried truths felt like a push into a chasm he wasn't prepared to leap into yet. David's eyes, usually specific and stalwart, were now shadows of a retreating fortress. "What was that knock?" he asked. "Let us see," Marissa replied, concern still clinging to her tone. She moved to the door, opening it wide to reveal a tall, lanky figure standing just outside. "Mr. Keller, I not now," David interrupted, raising a hand, and the young intern, Ben, froze mid-sentence. Ryan's attention flickered from Ben back to his father. David was trying to hold on to control, but the cracks were apparent. Just as Marissa had entered to unearth buried truths, Ben's unexpected arrival harbored the threat of new complications demanding David's attention, leaving Ryan to wrestle with his own newly revealed questions. "Okay," Ben spoke hesitantly, "but this is urgent. It concerns the financial documents from last month. They weren't filed properly." A phone slipped from Ryan's pocket, the clatter of it hitting the tiles sharp and jarring in the silence that followed. His gaze fell to it even as his mind raced. Here they were on the precipice of confronting David's past, and now there were financial ramifications bearing down right in front of them. "Can't it wait?" David snapped, the command giving way to the quivering threads of anxiety woven deep in his voice. Ryan observed his father's overwhelming frustration, torn between his crumbling past and the present chaos. Each charge ran through Ryan, igniting a fire beneath his still quiet exterior. Was it possible that in this maelstrom lay the very answers he needed to confront his own emotions? Maybe not, he found himself suggesting, surprising even himself. "Dad, if there is something we need to handle, maybe it helps. Part of owning something means addressing it fully, doesn't it?" Ryan's voice carried a steadiness he hadn't expected to find. It was as if the words unlocked some hidden facet of courage within him. Marissa gave him an encouraging nod, and David's frustration softened marginally, as if he sensed a breakthrough just beyond the horizon. "Your father is right, it's just," Marissa began, stepping closer, her focus on David. "No," Ryan interjected before he knew how to temper the outburst. "You can't keep sidestepping everything, Dad. We're at a crucial moment. This is about more than just you." The silence was heavy, pregnant with the realization that Ryan was no longer just a passive participant in this turmoil. People's lives lurked beyond the immediate family drama, and he had his role to play. The complexity of familial ties was deepened by the adhesive nature of choices his own and David's. Finally, David sighed. "All right, Ben. What do you need me to do?" Ben's shoulders relaxed a fraction. "I've gathered the files, but we need to prepare a response for the board regarding the discrepancies. Can you meet me in the conference room?" "Yeah, I can do that. Give me a moment." As Ben walked away, Ryan felt an unexpected shift taking place within himself. The fear surrounding Marissa's implications was rapidly morphing into determination as a renewed sense of responsibility ignited. Not only was he involved in David's confrontation with the past, but also in his own fight for clarity both professionally and personally. "Ryan," Marissa's voice drew him back to her. "It's time." He turned to her, the room fading away until it was just the two of them standing on the brink of this new revelation. "You're right. What I've buried isn't going to free itself. Then let us both start digging," she said softly, encouragement in her eyes. Without knowing where these revelations would lead, Ryan felt the inexplicable pull to confront his past decisions and the shadows they cast. It was only a beginning, but with the next breath, he surrendered to the prospect of embracing it all, his truth, his father's, and the choices woven into both their lives. But before he could delve deeper, the darkness around them shifted, and another knock raced through the air, coinciding with the urgency brewing within his heart. Who could it be now, and what more were they about to uncover? Ryan entered the room, feeling the oppressive weight of expectations pressed down on him. The hospital had transformed into the arena for introspection and confrontation. His father, David, was about to engage not only with Ryan but with the ghosts of their shared history, the shadows that had long dictated their actions. Before taking his seat, Ryan glanced at David, whose frail body now represented vulnerability rather than authority. A once powerful entrepreneur, now shackled by both physical limitations and psychological burdens, David had retreated into the layers of his regrets and unseen prison. "Dad," Ryan began, his voice steady yet vulnerable, "you've been ducking the truth for far too long. It's suffocating both of us, and Jack isn't the only one caught in this web." The raw honesty in Ryan's tone whirled in the room, and David's gaze faltered, a flicker of acknowledgement igniting in his eyes. As if sensing a shift in the atmosphere, Ryan pressed forward. "We spent years pretending to be okay. You know this, and I know this. But pretending won't fix anything. It's time we face the past together, lay it on the table and tackle it like we should have long ago." David faltered, emotions swirling behind tightly closed eyes. Frustration marred his expression, a battle of old defenses against new intentions raged within him. However, Ryan realized this was not just about confronting David, this was about owning his own fears too. "Dad, I'm not just talking about you," he continued, grounding himself in his truth. "I've been ignorant as well. I've avoided the very conversations that would allow me to grow as a father to Jack. I can't let this cycle continue." The transformation was profound, it felt like sunlight breaking through dark clouds as their shadows intertwined with the truth. David's eyes glistened with a mix of shame and revelation. "I've kept you from the truth to protect you. I thought you'd thank me later." Ryan straightened his back, years of disappointment now morphing into fierce determination. "Then let us flip the script, Dad. No more hiding behind past decisions. We build a legacy based on honesty moving forward. This time, we'll choose openness and truth over silence." David's brows knitted together in contemplation. "You think it's that easy?" "I've ruined lives, Ryan." "True," Ryan affirmed. "But you still have a chance. You can start making things right not just for you but for Jack and me. We need you to rise from this, to embrace who you were and who you still can be." An enlightening shift permeated the air as David took a deep breath, contemplation washing over him. Ryan could see the fight igniting within his father, as vulnerability transformed into readiness. "What do I even do?" David whispered, almost pleading. "Start by writing," Ryan suggested, confidence elevating his tone. "Share your truth. Don't just write about the successes, disclose your mistakes and the lessons learned. It can heal not just you but all of us. You can set down the weight you've carried for too long." In that moment, David nodded slowly, his resolve building. "Okay, I'll try." The tension began dissipating, replaced with tentative hope. They could emerge from this crucible transformed, a reunion birthed from the ashes of silence. An unexpected strength swelled within Ryan, realizing that he possessed the tools to lead by example, not just for himself but for his father, guiding both of them toward a transformed dynamic. Days passed, with Ryan dedicated to fostering his father's commitment to self-forgiveness. They spent hours together, unraveling thoughts and writing down experiences that had once burdened them. David shared confessions, not simply of past failures but of the vitality of forgiveness guided by honest reflection. Ryan found himself engaged, transforming his connection with Jack as well. He shared his progress with his son, nurturing a space where they could both mend. He encouraged Jack to articulate his dreams, fears, and anything else that felt heavy. Their bond strengthened, and Ryan felt a shift in Jack's demeanor. Weeks later, the basement that once lay dormant became a sanctuary filled with notebooks, scribbled reflections, and budding creativity. David held a finished manuscript titled The Unraveled Truth. As Ryan gripped the final chapter in his hands, he smiled with newfound confidence. The journey they traversed together wasn't just about uncovering the past, it was about embracing the power that honesty and vulnerability fostered, a transformation anchored in true connection. Ryan took a deep breath, feeling capable, grounded, and fulfilled. He had learned to speak and to listen, to reach out rather than withdraw. He had stepped into the shoes of the man he was meant to be, a father who not only embraced his own struggles but guided his son in doing the same, with clarity that felt liberating. he reflected on their past, understanding that the pain they endured had ultimately led to the growth they desperately needed. He stood at a threshold, not just for himself but for his family, determined to create a legacy built on honesty, vulnerability, and an unwavering bond. As Ryan glimpsed into the future with resolved eyes, he realized it was time to share their story widely, echoing their triumphs over tragedies. Together, they were emerging from the shadows, and the dawn of a new chapter shone on the horizon, one where they could illuminate the paths of others entangled in silence. Now, more than ever, Ryan knew it was imperative to amplify their journey, crafting a message that transcended the bounds of their family. This is your moment. You need to subscribe now to our channel to catch the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire and empower. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support truly matters. Comment below to share your reactions and theories about this remarkable ending. Let's converse about how we can all overcome our struggles together. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this extraordinary conclusion. Your genuine connection can foster resilience and healing within your circles.